Good afternoon, all. Great to see we have quite a few attendees joining the session. We'll get started in about a minute. Good afternoon, all. Thank you very much for joining and welcome to our webinar on how telematics transform the Province of New Brunswick winter operations. I think that may be a new tourism New Brunswick slot. Just let me get to the right slide. There we are. Folks, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Dwayne Primo, the president at Northern Business Intelligence. Really excited to be here today to speak with you and to also welcome our guest speaker and Mr. Jordan Stevens. Jordan, if you want to unmute and put your video on, that'd be wonderful. Excellent. Thanks, Jordan. So Jordan is the Assistant Director of Emergency Management with the Province of New Brunswick. He's been with the province for 5 years. Many of those years he was working with myself and the team here at Northern Business Intelligence in leveraging their telematics implementation. Jordan's just recently moved on to this new role in the Emergency Management Department, so congratulations, Jordan. And I think outside of managing emergencies and snow in the province, I think, Jordan, you spent about I'm not sure how many hours driving 6,000 kilometers to Nashville and back on your motorbike this past summer, seeking warmer weather. So hopefully you're primed for another winter in New Brunswick. So a few housekeeping items before we get started today. We will, through Zoom, please feel free, if you have questions through the session, please feel free to pose those via the chat or the Q&A. If we're able to, those will be addressed by some of our colleagues via the chat. Otherwise, we will open up for a Q&A to answer some of those questions or address any at the end of the session as well. All attendees today will be entered into a draw for one of a number of Yeti tumblers, which are quite nice. So they'll keep beverages warm on those cold days in the wintertime coming. We will be sending out a survey following the webinar. And of course, if there's any questions that we're not able to address during the session today, please contact us. Northern BI would be very happy to speak with you and answer any other questions that come up. And just last point of housekeeping is the session will be recorded today. So with that, we'll move right into our agenda. We'll start off by talking a little bit about introducing ourselves, who Northern Business Intelligence and our technology partner Geotab are. And then we'll pass it to Jordan to share more about the winter operations in the province of New Brunswick, the problem that they were facing and the mission they were looking to undertake when they began working with us, some of the solutions they've implemented, progress to date, and what's next for the province. And as noted, we'll try to reserve about 15 minutes or so for questions today. So with that, we'll jump right in and a little bit about us. So based in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia at Northern Business Intelligence, we're a team of telematics professionals focused on helping our clients get the absolute most value out of their investment in telematics technology. And we do that through a team approach where we have experts in order management, customer success, support, unlimited training, and folks who are really there to help you leverage these very powerful tools. So we've been doing this since 2005. We're very proud of our retention rate, which has never dipped below 97% year over year. And we do work with quite about 50% of our business today is focused exclusively on governments, mostly in Canada. So a little bit about our technology partner, and we're very proud to represent exclusively the Geotab product. Geotab is a Canadian-based company out of Oakville, Ontario, and Geotab has been since 2020 designing and manufacturing what I like to say is the most flexible and extensible telematics platform in the industry. ABI research agrees. Geotab's been ranked #1 worldwide a few times running, and have really focused on, as noted, a very flexible product, a product that's very, very secure, as well, really tailored for government. We think, particularly with investments Geotab made a few years ago and through some acquisitions, the functionality to meet the needs of governments and municipalities, including public works divisions, is now industry leading in our minds. So that's a bit about Geotab, and we'll talk more about how that technology has been used by the province today. So jumping right in, Jordan, if you could tell us a little bit about the winter operations with the Province of New Brunswick, that'd be wonderful.
Sure. Thanks, Dwayne. Thanks for having me today. So as Dwayne mentioned, I'm Jordan Stevens. I'm an engineer with the Department of Transportation Infrastructure here in Fredericton, New Brunswick. And just to chat about the first slide here. So we have a road network, as that beautiful video alluded to, a road network of about 17,000 kilometers with about 800,000 people in the province. We run about 450 plow trucks every winter, as well as about 100 other types of heavy equipment. We apply materials, both salt and sand, and an admixture of both. Our winter maintenance program typically runs from early December to late March. However, depending on the season, on the winter conditions that we have, it may run from anywhere from November into April. Our operating budget, typically year to year, is about $70 million. And kind of before the telematics solution, we relied on a lot of paper-based mapping and operational procedures and policies within the department. And a few years ago, we started really changing that into a digital database and moving into a telematics-based KPI reporting for all of our winter maintenance.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jordan. That's a lot of snow and a lot of ground to cover as well. So back when we started working together, Jordan, can you share a little bit of what the province was looking to achieve?
Yeah, so the biggest thing was really creating visibility amongst our operators, our supervisors, our managers, and as well as our senior leaders. So there was a few items that we really wanted to tackle. A few being, fatigue management from our operators, how many hours that they're spending behind the wheel, historical trends to break down and find efficiencies year to year, reallocation of the budget to increase the fleet size. So really having a deep dive as to what we have and how we create our plan of establishment for some of our trucks, and trying to find the efficiencies amongst the province. Of course, reduction in material usage if possible through those efficiencies. Always a top priority for the department as well is ensuring safety for operators and our traveling public on the roadways. Really based, on all those constraints and all the data that we could gather, we were looking at data-driven business decisions, really around the age of the fleet, location of the budgets, environmental impacts, and through that, some of the KPIs and reporting that we'll discuss further in the presentation.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jordan. And looking back prior to working together, can you share some of the gaps that you were looking to fill?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things that we wanted to focus on and find some efficiencies around was really capturing the data accurately and efficiently, and comparing the in-field operations to some of the data that we were seeing through the software suite, through some of the telematics, and evolving that. So, depending on when a storm hit, it was always difficult to capture. It's always difficult to capture trends and find those efficiencies through the trends because of kind of the complexities that we see through our winter maintenance. Change in level of service depending on high volume corridors or when a storm hit. Some of those constraints made it quite challenging to find those efficiencies. So we really wanted to dive into some of the information, find a solution that worked for us, so that we could monitor them and tweak them accordingly.
Yeah, I recall, Jordan, discussions we had about even normalizing your budget annually on the basis of the big geography you manage and those differences year to year in weather patterns. So, no, very good. Thank you. The next spot I want to get to then is the solution. So, we worked on this together, of course, but if you could, share for us the solution that you addressed and how you went about addressing these gaps.
Yeah, so we wanted to, as I alluded to, we wanted to make smart decisions based on the data that we had, but also grow that data and make sure that that we're being as efficient as possible. The department engaged MBI. We've had a relationship since 2011, and using telematics, and we wanted to continue to expand that and hone in on that data to make smart decisions. In 2020, we did work with you guys to form a relationship with Quetica, who provided the route optimization platform for us, and really working internally to ensure that resourcing, we had appropriate resourcing amongst the province to ensure that the project was a success. That was another one of our big constraints on ensuring project success.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a critical piece I think we've learned and is always reinforced. The technology being there is a part of it, but we're there to support you and having the it's been great in the role that you filled in Public Works, working with you directly to be able to gain that buy-in and leverage the tools as well. Excellent. So these are some fairly significant investments for the province to make in tools and partners in technology and resources. Can you share a little bit about how you went about gaining decision maker support?
Yeah, so we did perform a lot of market scans, determining industry standards and a lot of the things, reports as well. But a lot of the things that we found out was really buy-in from the boots on the ground was a huge factor in the change management and into ensuring project success and to find those efficiencies. Instead of decision makers from the top down, senior leaders and managers pushing that, we really wanted the buy-in from the operations and determine their wants and needs first, and then build upon that. and really the project wasn't necessarily completely budget driven. Finding the operational efficiencies and finding the safe practices through this platform was really the goal. There was a lot of roll-up information into the executive dashboards as well, and metrics and KPIs that allowed for our senior leaders to see and monitor those efficiencies as well. So that was always a key factor in getting that decision-making support, as we call it. And visibility really on our operations, and ensuring that the efficiencies were portrayed accurately through our dashboarding, but also that the conversations with the operations, with the boots on the ground, so to speak, was sound as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, from what I gathered, the data has been useful in even helping validate requirements for equipment from some of your districts and divisions in the past as well.
Correct.
Yeah, very good. Excellent. Thanks, Jordan. So I guess it would be helpful getting into some of the functionality that the province is leveraging. Can you share a bit of how you verified route completion for your service levels before and after introducing telematics?
Yeah, so we didn't really have a visualization tool in hand to measure our level of service completion. We were really reliant on operational communication, public feedback, really to determine if we were achieving our level of service. So a big thing, the roll up, I guess, of the route completion through GPS tracking really allows the managers and supervisors to visualize these routes and to ensure that the level of service is being achieved. Accuracy, of course, the information is vital for that management, and also for future potential public facing systems that we may implement.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Jordan. And I know there have been quite a few instances, but can you share some examples of how the data has helped with your operations?
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of our data does roll up into what we call the management dashboard, and it does show material spread rates, so they can track them through different timelines, route completion, cycle time, validation of level of service. But there's also the aspect of theft and stolen equipment and litigation issues. An example of that, we had a fatal accident in the north a few years back, and of course, as soon as there's an accident, there's typically an eye on the department, potentially a blame to say that the winter maintenance wasn't up to par. And with the GPS solution, with the tracking, we could easily pull up the fact that a plow had recently gone by, and not just went by, but was spreading assault material. Obviously a very tragic incident. However, it's great to have the support for operators to show that we are performing what we need to do in the field.
Yeah, it's obviously a really unfortunate scenario. It is unfortunately one of the points we do hear from clients like yourselves, that the data the data is so useful when it comes to validating the work has been completed, and it is an example. I think early days for telematics implementations, the change management for operators around having this device in the vehicles is a challenge, but these examples are where the data helps really defend the operators as well as the province in this case. So thanks for sharing that story, Jordan. And how, we talked a bit about snow events and the fact you have multiple districts with multiple, different weather patterns at the same time. Can you talk a little bit about how you've used the data to identify these snow events?
Yeah, for sure. So this report here, and hopefully, some of these reports will help some of the folks on the line as well to kind of, wrap their head around establishing telematics and GPS solutions to kind of streamline and find efficiencies there. What the province did in the past was we had highway supervisors physically cataloging a baseline for storms, and we used the number of storms per year for budgeting purposes and to kind of track historically whether we had a severe winter based on number of storms or not. And one thing that we were able to achieve here was really capturing the plow trucks and the GPS in them, where we created a zone around the depot. And when those trucks would leave the zone for longer than 2 hours, and there was more than 75% of the fleet issued, it would trigger a ding to show that there was an event. You can see in this one here, this is a specific division shown here in this report, and you can see that 75% threshold. So in this particular instance, in January, we had 8 events. So it alleviates the highway supervisors to be able to do the work that they need to do in the divisions and not have to worry about cataloging certain things. It's automatically captured.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool, like, this is one of those use cases I find really interesting, because we were able to, the report that folks that you're seeing here is a custom MyGeotab report that has a few layers of logic built into the custom report, but pretty impactful, as Jordan described, in terms of taking a really manual process and what I think ended up being more qualitative, when you say, Jordan, on flagging those snow days, to a more a faster, easier process to get a quantified count of snow days for a season, which is very a best practice. Others may, if there's other folks on the line, which there may be, who are working with this, please talk to your CSM, and we can help you out with a similar type of report. So next up, Jordan, wanted to ask a bit about how you mentioned at the top, one of the challenges that you've been, early on were looking to address at the province was driver fatigue and understanding cycle time. Can you share with us how you use the data to help manage driver fatigue?
Yes, we actually we take this report here and we actually flow it into a Power BI system where we track work orders against as well. But this was a validation of hours behind the wheel for the operators. And what was important is to see for trends. So lengthy hours behind the wheel for consecutive days, and to flag those for managers and supervisors of those operators to ensure that they're not overworking the operators to find that correlation, and obviously with high hours behind the wheel and consecutive days back to back, there's always the potential of running into accidents and not just the operators, but from the traveling public as well. So it's a good tool to identify some of those trends.
Yeah, this is a fantastic use, and a lot of kudos and credit to you and the province for taking the reins in establishing these measures. I think with our commercial clients operating not municipals where they may be exempt for ELD mandates, there are obviously there's a lot of focus on driver time hours, and it's great that you folks have been able to leverage the data to manage some of that in-house. Around material management, can you help us maybe share the story of how this has changed things, from how you were doing things prior to the telematics use of reporting on material management?
Yeah, so for a long time we were work order based for inventory control for most of our salt and our sand, and this really helps not just validate the information for the material going on the road, but also provide different levels of monitoring. So this screenshot here would actually be at an executive level, so you'd be looking at things provincially. Our province is broken up into 6 districts. So the district engineers would then break down into their own respective districts, and then to go even further down, the highway supervisors would then be able to see their respective area, where they would have 10 trucks. So it's a great tool at different levels of the organization to be able to monitor your daily operations or holistically the entire winter, just to kind of validate to to ensure if there's outliers that those efficiencies are addressed. So yeah, it's a great tool for, I guess, all levels of supervising and management roles within the department.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Jordan. The next area I want to move into is around optimizing of routes. So, this has been quite a journey, this process, and would love to hear from you what sort of preceded this journey and a bit of the process you followed here.
Yeah, so we've been working on the route optimization program for about 3 years now. It really started out with a colleague, him and I, going through market scans, technical reports, industry standards, as I mentioned before, and really understanding the solutions out there in the market. One of the biggest things that we found out is there's a lot of supply and services type approaches to a point, say a point A to a point B type optimization software, but winter route optimization is quite complex, and really determining what's out there and what's available for that. So that was its own kind of constraint. So working with you, Dwayne, and your team for 10 years, it kind of seemed like a holistic approach to come into it, understanding telematics and route optimization. Partnered up, as I mentioned before, with Quetica, and started working with that paper-based mapping and digitizing all of them, which was obviously leaps and bounds above our current practices. The other thing is really document control. So when you're starting to really dive into digitizing some of these paper-based mapping, you're finding efficiencies. You're finding things that incorrect, things that were incorrect, or things that you can improve upon. And the other thing was training for new operators. It's always advantageous to have these digitized routes to be able to print and provide and turn by turn type instruction to new operators coming in. So just to kind of speak on the road optimization journey, as we call it, there were a number of steps. Really, the first was discovery. So that's really understanding, the operation and the end result that we're trying to achieve. So working with the consultant to understand the department's wants and needs. Data collection, which was a massive undertaking, months on end, really capturing all the relevant data, as well as extensive discussions with the district operations to understand the complexities around the routes. Then there's the route design, the actual modeling of it. There's a route generation of it all, which resulted in various iterations that needed to be tackled because of the constraints that we had with the district operations, and the field testing and validation. That's really getting out there, driving the routes and ensuring that they will work depending on the areas and the high volume corridors, and the level of services, and all the other constraints, which I think we'll touch on in the next slide. The implementation, tech support, and improvements are the last 3 steps there, are kind of all working seamlessly, cyclical, to ensure that the data is accurate and flowing nicely.
Nice. Yeah, it is a journey, and the parameters you referenced, Jordan, and in our market scans, in choosing Quetic as a partner, we found the same. There's a lot of delivery, pickup, service, like point service focused routing solutions in the market, and a fairly limited number focused on the complexities of winter operations and routing of a pathway of service to be delivered. Can you share a bit about these parameters and constraints that you chose to use in optimizing the routes?
Yeah, so the parameters that we used are listed here, and as you can see, there's a lot of different complex constraints that need to be implemented into a winter route optimization software and tool. Outside of just the constraints, there's also the buy-in, right? So there's the change management aspect, there's the boots on the ground, understanding and feedback, and the historical knowledge and trends that they have. just based on many years of providing winter maintenance. Like you said, the supply chain industry, the point A to point B is quite simple. The winter operation is quite complex. You have to understand, you have to hit a high volume corridor between 5:30 in the morning and 7:30 in the morning to ensure that the road is cleaned up before school buses hit.
Yeah.
Or you run into a weight restricted bridge that with a fully loaded plow truck, 12-ton payload in the back that you can no longer cross until you're empty. So you have to understand the complexities of finishing a route and hitting that at the end of your route in order to be under the weight restriction. There's the logging industry that's up at the crack of dawn that needs to hit some of the back roads that aren't a high volume corridor. There's of course which we had extensive discussions on, and always a funny topic to discuss, but our maple syrup operations, very time based and evening and weekend based. So that adds in its own complexities. So it's very challenging. It has been very challenging, but quite rewarding, I guess, as well to understand those complexities and how to implement those into a computer-based software model.
Fantastic. Yeah, we have to keep the syrup flowing so that you don't have to tap into the strategic reserve, right? Very cool. So can you share a little bit about the progress to date on, just where things are with the road optimization progress or process, Jordan?
Yeah, so we focus on one district. As I mentioned, we have 6 in the province. So District 6 is our northwestern district, and we ran that district as a pilot program. We did complete 2 scenarios from a fully optimized model. I would say one of the biggest benefits was the optimization model provides routes that allow the plow trucks to return to the depot at the end of their run, at the end of their material usage, which was quite interesting for the department because typically we'd have a run based on the truck. That run needed to be completed by that particular truck. However, there was always a lot of deadheading because to complete that run, say in 3 hours, that truck would have to return once or twice back to the depot. So there's always that deadheading that was obviously an inefficient process. So it was quite interesting is, we went from 52 runs up to 84 routes or runs, which is quite interesting. And at first, I think it took people off guard because we don't have that amount of trucks. But it's really about cycle time. It's about coming back, as you finish your material payload and refilling and going back out again within a time constraint. So that was quite an interesting efficiency that we found out of the process. To kind of touch on the scenarios themselves, scenario 1, we really wanted to just run exactly as per our current operation to get a baseline. So we want to say, run the exact same amount of trucks in the same location with the same payload, with the same amount of operators, for the same time and the same level of service. Take all of those things that we currently do in a software model and find the efficiencies, from a computer-based model, and we did find some efficiencies there. Again, one of the biggest just being route completion, returning back to the depot and not having that deadheading time. The second scenario that we ran was actually removing divisional boundaries. So we have imaginary lines in the sand for each division that they go to the end of their corridor and they turn around and come back. We removed all of those lines to find those efficiencies to traverse the district, and again we found some efficiencies through that as well, which I believe was three runs and 15% less deadheading, which is excellent, especially if you look at it. If in the future at a provincial level, that's a huge economic savings.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I think the numbers worked out that this could be done with one less vehicle, which wasn't necessarily intended to be remove a vehicle from the fleet, but offer more another backup, or more flexibility, operational flexibility. And as you
Yeah,
described, Jordan, that increased number of routes versus single routes assigned to truck. There's constantly differences in the weather conditions, or other operational factors that from what we gather, the ability to have fewer routes give you a bit more flexibility in how those might be assigned as well, to deal with changes that may happen on a given event day.
yeah, I think for the folks on the line, from a management perspective, everything that's paper based, it's often difficult, I guess, to qualify or even quantify the needs and wants from the operations. I think everybody hears, the same comment around we need more operators, we need more plow trucks. So to actually have something that is producing that information is vital to report up to senior management, or whomever is writing the checks, so to speak, to say that this is a requirement. We've run all the scenarios and that it is a requirement. We need an extra truck, or we need a few extra runs in a certain division, or we need to break up some of these lines. So it really helps in that regard as well.
Yeah, fantastic. That's great. Thank you, Jordan. I guess what's next? What are you folks from here looking to achieve with the province moving forward?
So I think the biggest lesson learned that we took as a province is appropriate resourcing for an undertaking like this. There was a lot of hours taken with not just the operations team, the head office, so to speak, team, but also the district operations, and having proper resourcing to ensure project success, because it is, like I said, it is a huge undertaking. It's taking paper-based mapping, requiring turn-by-turn digitizing, and then modeling. So at the moment, the province is looking into that, into ensuring that proper resources are allocated within the districts to ensure project success. Because if it's a single individual running this program, it's a lot of work, and if you don't have that buy-in, if you don't have the information that's required to feed into the model appropriately, then it makes it quite difficult to ensure project success.
Yep, absolutely.
But I mean, ultimately, what the province would like to achieve is what we call a highway supervisor playbook. So running various iterations, different models for different scenarios that we have. For instance, if you had a minus 35, minus 40 day, that material spreading is just not an option, and you're going out and simply plowing. What does that look like, right? So you don't have a constraint on using all the material for your payload. You're just dropping your plow and you're going, and dynamically moving, say, some of your plows around. So if you have a breakdown in one division, what does it look like quickly to take a plow from in a neighboring division and move it up, and now that operator, or now that highway supervisor that had 8 is now running 7, is running lean. So what does that new route look like, right? So having the playbook for the highway supervisor, in order for them to make the smartest decisions with what they're facing for that day.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it sounds and driving those playbooks as you've described it, based on data, database models and decisions, I think is fantastic. We're looking forward to continuing to work with you folks through that. And as folks see on the screen, there's lots of additional features, functionality available technology wise. But I think Jordan hit the nail on the head. The prioritizing these things relative to what will give the most return to the province or any entity, and then resourcing appropriately is really critical. And I think it's safe to say the road optimization process is, as I think your pre-research noted, those stages are not one slide incorporates it. It is a journey. It is a big process in data, in modeling, in discovery of all of the as Jordan described today, all of those variables that need to be considered in the models, and that's an undertaking that does need to be resourced appropriately, and a recognition it's a multi-year project to be able to deploy. I think it's safe to say. So,
Yeah,
that's great.
certainly.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks very much, Jordan. So that really, we're pretty much on time to leave ourselves 20 minutes for questions, and so let's open it up and take a look to see which questions we've come in through the Q&A. Bear with me a moment because I have not been looking until just now. And okay, so we have a question. Can you incorporate contractor vehicles into our software? And yeah, great question, Kim. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. There's a few ways you can go about doing that. The first would be, and we do have many clients who will choose to either require of the contractor that they install a geotab device in the vehicle, and then really just activate that device into the city or province's vehicle or geotab database. There is another option which is fairly newly released from geotab, where it's called extendable services, and you can actually have a device communicate to so a contractor, if you have a contractor who has geotab, or you contractually require that they equip their vehicles with geotab, they can have their own database, their own use of the data, and they can simply extend the data by a click of a button into your database as a secondary, real-time flow to both databases concurrently. So that's another new method to be able to incorporate contractors' vehicles data into the software to take advantage of all of the same, investigative, service completion reporting, telematics data.
Yeah, a good example. A good example of what we do in the province for that is, like I mentioned, some of our weight restricted bridges. So some are so far under our weight restriction that we have to hire out some of the contracts for that. So that's a great example of something that we use in the province for contractor fleet.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Jordan. Excellent. Another question. So for road completion, is it tied to a time to be completed or just completed? Is that during a storm where you plow routes more than once, or at the last plow? So I want to make sure I understand tied to time. So from a time perspective on the road completion, it is being calculated on cycle time to complete the full run of routes. That's one of the major KPIs that would have been tracked through the scenarios that Jordan described. That cycle time, we didn't note the benefits, but there was I think it was a 5% decrease in cycle time overall with the scenario 2 routes. And anecdotally, we believe scenario 1 was providing some improvements, but this is the benefit of doing some data modeling. There was no baseline to really assess the cycle time prior. So that's hopefully that answers that question for you, Bruce. And yeah, and relative to is it during a storm or you plow roads. So these keep me accurate to this, Jordan, but the routes that were developed were salt roads and sand roads in this instance, not specifically plow roads, right?
Yeah, so the way that we modeled it for level of service and the way that we perform our winter maintenance is depending on the level of service category. There's different material spreading. So that's how we model this. So our level of service A and B's are our salt runs, and our C's and our D's are our sand runs. So we ensured that the road had a specific category for a level of service. So when you're say if you're leaving with a sand truck, you're heading on to sand runs, not performing a level of service A or a B with a sand truck. So that was one of the constraints and parameters that we had in the model. I think that answers the question. Anyway.
I think so. And please enter in the chat if it did or didn't. Thanks, Jordan. Then the next one we have here is, can you elaborate on the percentage route completion and how you factor in multi-pass routes depending on the snowfall amount and duration of storm? Maybe do you want, Jordan, I can start on that one, and maybe you want to speak to your use.
Yep.
The percentage route completion as it relates to how Geotab calculates route completion, when routes are digitized, so this could be done with your existing routes or your optimized routes through an optimization effort, as we've talked about today. Those can be uploaded through GIS shapefile uploads into my Geotab as your routes, along with attributes to those shape files of number of passes required. And so the service completion will calculate relative to completion relative to the required number of passes. So that hopefully addresses that part of the question. Now, the snowfall amount and duration of the storm, that's not currently considered relative to the route completion. But I think that's where, going back to the count of storm events, that's where we've looked at building some of those reports and tools with Jordan and his team to start to build data points that can be correlated around the duration of storm. But I don't know if you have other comments around that part of the question on what data sources, Jordan, you use around snowfall amounts, duration of storm, beyond what we discussed with the Geotab report for count of events.
No, it is a really good question. It's one that came up a few times in our process, and it is an important factor. It is difficult to kind of what I alluded to with the highway supervisor playbook to have different scenarios going forward. But in terms of duration, it's really our high volume corridors are directly correlated with our level of service. So breaking down our routes by level of service provides that insight to the highway supervisor to make their own decisions based on that storm itself. So, for instance, if you have, the perfect storm that we modeled was one that ended at 5 o'clock in the morning, and it was clear skies, right? So the plow would go out, all the plows would go out, and they'd complete 100% of their routes and return back to the depot. Obviously, that doesn't occur. But what you have to do is you have to break those into priorities, which is, that is our level of service, and then allow that to be an operational decision based on the day and based on the storm for the highway supervisor. So perhaps they're sending out on a level of service A, which is our top priority. You would send out multiple trucks for that repetitively before you're going to tackle your level of service C's or D's. So that's what I said. It was one of the more efficient, one of the efficiencies that we found was providing all of those different routes, just to give the ability to the highway supervisor to make those sound operational decisions based on what they're seeing that day.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Jordan. We have quite a few questions here. That's great. So I've just looked over the Q&A. Yes.
Okay.
Sir.
Yeah. Thanks. I just wanted to make sure you got into the Q&A because that's where the bulk of the questions are. Thank you.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you. Yeah. I'm gonna try to hit them as they've come in. So we're gonna move. Andrew had a question for us here, and I think this one's for you, Jordan. If you could comment on operator buy-in and what type of issues the operators brought forward. Yeah, and I expect this would apply to telematics, but probably the route conversation particularly as well.
Yeah, great question. So the change management process and that buy-in is a difficult one for sure. You have operators that are very familiar with their routes. They know the area, they're from the area, and it is difficult to make those changes. I actually found, to be honest, we spent a lot of time finding those efficiencies, finding those constraints, and the best change management that we had was simply implementing or trying it out in one of the early storms the following winter, and as soon as we're crossing our fingers, we're hoping everything goes very smoothly. And when they did return, and you have a couple of operators that are thinking, wow, that was a great way to do it, or they're actually providing more input to say, well, why don't you do it this way? And you're getting buy-in. But it really, in my opinion anyway, it's really trialing it. So you're gonna have a lot of discussion about it. You're gonna have a lot of computer generated information, but really getting out there and trying it. The other thing is the turn by turn. We have a good amount of turnover with our operators, as I'm sure a lot of jurisdictions do, and having that turn by turn provided to an operator really helps a new operator get up to speed quite quickly. So that was another maybe a big benefit, and something that I think the district operations found quite useful.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jordan. Next question here is thoughts on adding or tracking video. And I can maybe very quickly just note that we do offer video telematics. I won't name the entity, but we only have one municipality using, one government entity using the video telematics today, primarily to visually confirm service completion or as another data input to defend oneself or confirm service. But I don't know if you have that, if you want to comment on that, Jordan, relative to the province.
We've done some internally. They're not tied to the telematics. We've used them for some of our marketing, some of our training. It's not. It's certainly something. I think the department. I think everybody will slowly work towards. I think there's a lot of efficiencies. Like I said, there's showing the complexities to about what our operators do on a daily basis for training and marketing, but also capturing for liability issues or mitigation issues or what have you for accidents and everything is a useful tool as well. We're not that far down the line, but I can see that being kind of a future potential.
Yeah, I'm currently testing one of the units that we offer in my vehicle, and it definitely from a driver fatigue and distraction, when I yawn, it tells me I'm distracted. So the AI features are getting pretty cool too. The next question we're going to run to, because we have quite a few, is what Andrew asking whether at the province you've been tracking plowing up and down time. You want to comment on that, Jordan?
Yeah, sure. So we've been piloting that over the last year as well. So we do have hydraulic sensors that are put in a dozen of our trucks. We found that to be the most robust and reliable source right in the hydraulic valve bank. So it's a great question because when we're tracking our plow route and our plow route completion, if you don't have a sensor that tracks plow up and down, then it is difficult to know when they're actually starting the route. So it's certainly something that the department wants to look into future. I believe some of the new builds coming out now are going to have them equipped automatically. So it is great. It's going to have a lot of useful benefits.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jordan. Next one is a question from Clarence asking if you have any data on the salt or sand reduction or fuel savings resulting from that optimization.
That's a great question. So it is a difficult number to capture. What we've found, understanding having a reduction in time and kilometers that the plow trucks are on the road directly correlates to fuel efficiencies and material efficiencies potentially as well. Because if you have a lot of deadheading time, then the chances of your operator spreading material in that deadheading space is quite high. So anecdotally, I would say yes, but it's not something that we have firm numbers on. It has been a challenging thing to get that exact data set. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think just to add to that, I think moving forward with additional operation of optimized routes, there can be some benefit of leveraging the geotab data prior and post in terms of fuel consumption and material that we're looking forward to working with the province on. Next question. During storms with heavy cloud cover, have you experienced any communication issues with Geotab Go or Go Rugged? Jordan, do you want to speak to your experience?
We do have some blind spots in the province, but one of the benefits that we've seen is it continues to capture the information until you get into an area that can retrieve the data. So that's been a huge, a very efficient, use of our telematics system.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, and I can speak just from our experience. We've not heard any reports of clients indicating communication issues with Geotab relative to cloud cover with Go Devices or Go Rugged. And as Jordan described, I think in the province there are the dark spots he's talking about are cellular dark spots where there's not a coverage, and that's accounted for with the collection and the memory the device has. Another question from Andrew, and this one's for you, Jordan, did you use temperature sensors and does your output adjust automatically? Assume that's material output. So, yeah.
Yeah, so we actually don't use temperature sensors. We had piloted a couple years back on our highway supervisor trucks because we did road patrol. We have an ROS system in the province that does have road temperature sensors in various areas of the province. I think we've got 35 sites kind of thing. But no, not currently do we have plows equipped with temperature sensors.
Yeah, just for the audience's knowledge, we do, the Geotab technology does allow in support for capturing the data from Marwis and RoadWatch temperature sensors. And we do have some clients using those either on plow vehicles. It can come directly from the sensor or through your ground speed controller. And others are using them in patrol vehicles. So that is supported, for those applications as well. I have a question from Brad asking if we can elaborate on in-cab navigation, phone-based or a separate device. And maybe I can tackle that one, Jordan. So the functionality that's supported by through our partner Quetica for in-cab navigation is an Android-based application. So it can operate on an Android phone or an Android tablet, and it allows you to take either your existing routes digitized, digitization of those, or it's a service we can offer as well, or those optimized routes, and present them to your operator along with start of service areas, turn-by-turn directions, and voice commands. So that's an Android application. Perfect. So we have another question here, and I think this one's for you, Jordan. How has your relationship with the operations team and operators improved/changed since introducing the advanced public works or snow?
That's a great question. It really is, and a very complex one to answer. There's certainly been areas that that relationship has improved. I think we did have quite a few success stories with the highway supervisors and the operators. When there was a realization there that we weren't trying to reduce the amount of plows or find the budget cuts, we really and truthfully were just trying to find the efficiencies for them to be able to perform their job easier. If you're eliminating an hour or two off their day every day over an entire winter, it is beneficial, right? It provides a little bit of a relief, I guess, to them. But that's a great question. There's definitely areas that there's still a lot of pushback. I think change management and technology coming into some of the operations that we do is always going to be met with some resistance. But overall, I'd say it's safe to say it could be about a 50-50 split if I had to put a number on it. But something that continue to be worked upon. Good question. Thank you.
Yeah, some really great questions, and we're just coming up on time. I know there's another question about the in-cab navigation, and I do just want to clarify so that I don't want to the description I gave of the in-cab navigation is the Quetica functionality. That wasn't in scope of what the province is using today, so I just want to make sure that that's clear. There was another question here from Newt regarding contractor installs. And just to clarify, Newt's question here is regarding contractor installs if the province is monitoring attachments or just a bit more basic location only. So I can tackle that one, I think, for Jordan, in that just describing the extendable services that we've outlined, or either method I described of recording contractor activity would function for the full range of telematics, including material management and so on, as long as those vehicles are equipped with, an IOX Works, the appropriate hardware to connect to the ground speed controllers or plow sensors or so on. So I think we have. There is one more question for you, Jordan, and I think it's a quick one, so we can get it, which is just what control point system are you using? Which type of ground speed controller, I think, is the question, is being used by the province.
100% of our plow trucks are using Dickie John.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. Wonderful, folks. We have filled the hour.
Looks like we lost Dwayne just at the end. Just to make it exciting for you, Jordan. I wasn't going to leave you there and make wrap this up at the end. So a little bit of technology challenge for everybody. So yeah, I really appreciate everybody joining us today. Jordan, thank you for your time. For those questions that we didn't answer, and even for the ones we did answer, we will be providing a written summary of all the questions and answers, and we'll also be following up with all the winners of all the Yetis here in a little bit of time. So again, thank you everybody for joining us, and we'll see you again on the next webinar.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks everyone.
Bye now.